Hi there everyone, welcome to the channel and welcome to the 1500 point Tempest of War game between the forces of the Imperial Knights and the Tyranid Hive Fleet. In the Tempest of War card pack, you randomly draw a primary mission deployment and special mission rule. So before the game started, we set up our primary mission, deployment, and mission rule as follows. So Vital Ground is going to be the primary, so 3 VP if you control the marker in your own deployment. If you control one or more in No Man's Land, you get 4 VP, and if you control the objective marker in your enemy's deployment zone, you score 5 victory points, and 1 victory point for each unit destroyed in the battle round, to a maximum of 3. We have sweeping engagement, so corners along the long edge of the battlefield, and delayed reserves for the special mission rule today. As for the table, all the terrain, or almost all the terrain that you see, is going to be obscuring 5 inches or taller ruins. And we're going to play the sections of the ruins that are scattered about or into separate pieces as a footprint. So for example, if you are within the footprint of this terrain piece or within the footprint of that terrain piece, you will be in cover, with the exception of this terrain piece that I have added to the collection. This is going to be counting as a forest using the rules for forests from the core rulebook. In Tempest of War, you also set up 5 objective markers. So we have 1 objective marker hidden in this corner in one deployment zone, then 1 right here near the center of the battlefield, 1 right over here, 1 hiding behind this tall piece of terrain in the opposite deployment zone, and then finally 1 last objective marker in No Man's Land hiding out in that piece of terrain. Now that we've covered the table and the mission rules, let's get a look into the armies. 1,500 points of Hive Fleet Kraken arrayed and ready to go against the Imperial Knights. We have a battalion and a fortification network. For the HQ slots, we have a Turbogon and a Neurothrope. The Neurothrope is going to be our Warlord today, with the Kraken specific Warlord trait 1 step ahead. That's the 5-up CP regen. And then the Turbogon is going to have the Army Relic Chameleonic Mutation. And just for note keeping, we are still playing with Nockmund rules, so no needing to pay for the first Warlord trait or relic, and starting with the regular 12 CP or down to 11 for the Tyranids by taking a fortification network. The HQs are going to be going with the Hive Mind Discipline psychic powers that you see before you, so Catalyst on the Turbogon, and Synaptic Lure and Onslaught on the Neurothrope. In the troop slots, we have a 3-man unit of warriors with Scything Talons, Lash Whip Bone Sword, and a Venom Cannon on one of the warriors. Then a 20-bug squad with Flesh Borers, and 10 Termagants with Devourers. Then in a 4th troop slot, a 20-strong unit of Hormagaunts. In our elites, we have a 3-man unit of Zonethropes with the Horror on them to act as some psychic might. And then the big bugs following up the hordes will be a Haruspex and Exocrine. Both of these will have a synaptic enhancement on them. The Exocrine will have synaptic upgrade, so he will be counting as a synapse creature. And Haruspex will have the 5-up Feel No Pain and count as double wounds for bracketing in terms of how well he's doing on the field. Then finally, in our fortification network, we have a Spore Assist with 5 Venom Cannons. That's the only thing in the army that isn't going to be what you see is what you get. felt it would be appropriate to have a little bit more anti-tank going up against the Imperial Knights. But other than that, all of the models are what you see are what you get. So that is the Bugs of Hive Fleet Kraken. And for our adaptive part of the Hive Fleet trait, we're going to go with Wreathed in Shadow from the, I believe, Feed tree. So that means no firing Overwatch or setting to defend against the Bugs of Hive Fleet Kraken as they advance into melee. Now let's take a look at the Knights. Here are the 1500 point forces of the Imperial Knights. Our warlord for the force is going to be our Knight Warden with the Gatling gun and the chainsword. He's going to have the Ion Bulwark for his warlord trait and the Hunter's Eye for the Army Relic. So that gives him a 4-up invuln against shooting and no benefits of cover against his shooting attacks. We also have a Knight Errant with the Thermal Cannon and Chainsword with a Melt-A-Gun in his carapace. And then 2 units of Armigers, what you see is what you get, and unit of 2 Warglaves with Melt-A-Guns, and a unit of 2 Armigers with the Stubbers on top. Our oaths today are going to be lay low the Tyrant and protect the realm, so trying to kill and trying to claim more objectives than the Tyranids. And going to be running them as House Cadmus with benefits in melee against large enemy units, and with Questor Imperialis getting pluses to charge and to advance. And with that, let's go on to deploying the armies and getting the battle set up to get started. Here we are after deployment, ready to get started. Over on this flank, we have the Helverins and the Sporicist, which has forward deploy a little bit out of the Tyranid's deployment zone, but needed to stay 12 inches away. Then we have the Haruspex, Zoanthropes, and the 10 Gaunt squad hiding behind this forest, trying to take some cover from the heavy guns of the Knights, as the Warden and Errant are both in the center of the table with pretty good lines of sight across the rest of the table. The Warglaves are over on the far flank, with the majority of the Tyranids against them, with the Hormagaunts and Zoanthrope supporting them far on the left side for the Tyranids. Warriors sitting on the home objective, Turvagon and her 20 insect swarm in front of her, and then finally the Exocrine sitting in the backfield, hoping to take down, or at least start to take down, one of the 2 big Knights early. So with that, we are ready to roll off. Do this match play style, so winner has to go first. Green will be the Knights, red will be the Tyranids. 5, and of course I dropped the red die, so Knights with a 5, and then Tyranids with a 2, so it will be Imperial Knights, turn 1. Turn 1 for the Imperial Knights, and here's what we're looking at for our first turn objectives. We have no prisoners, no retreat, no surrender, and bring it down. So kill 3 wounds of Tyranids. Don't fail morale, don't fall back, and don't leave objectives. And kill the unit with the most wounds, which I believe will be the Turvagon. No retreat, no surrender will slow down this Helverin right up in the front, who was going to start moving out, leaving the other one back to defend the home objective. But other than that, that looks like a pretty good start for the objectives for the knights. So we'll go on to the movement phase and come back at the start of the shooting phase. At the end of Imperial Knights movement phase, the Helverins just moved around a little bit, getting down onto their level. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like either of them is going to be able to see anything for shooting, as the base of the Spore Assist was just out of line of sight behind that obscuring ruin piece. So it looks like they're just going to be holding the objective in the back. The one with the green die on it did get the Bondsman ability to give him counts as 10 models for control of the objective marker. In the center, the two big knights are moving forward, just moved up their 10 inches, starting to stare down the big bugs of the Tyranid swarm. And then over here, the Warglaives have moved around this building. This front one got advance and charge from the Errant Bondsman ability, and he got a 6 on his advance. So he's moving a mighty 19 inches, and will still be able to charge into the front wave of Griblies for the Tyranids, while this back one just moved around and is claiming this objective in the back. And with that, we're ready to go on to the shooting phase. For the turn 1 Synaptic Imperative, the Tyranids did activate Warp Shielding. That's going to be a 4-up invuln for the monsters and 5-up invuln for everything else to see if we can try to weather the storm of knights shooting. Starting off the shooting phase, we're going to start with the Gallant. His thermal cannon is going to fire into the Exocrine, and then the Meltagun is just going to fire into the Termagant swarm, as they are the only thing in range of it. So, 2d3 shots on the thermal cannon. That's going to be a total of 3 shots. Hitting on 3s. Hitting once, or hitting twice, missing once. And I'll use the Honored ability from our Oaths to re-roll one of the hits. Yep, again, another 1, so that's going to be Strength 9 into Toughness 8 on the Exocrine, so wounding on 3s. Getting a 3 and a 1. So this will probably be the biggest weapon going into a bug in the shooting phase, so we will use a CP to reroll that, going down to 10. So that's 2 at -4 AP into the Exocrine. So that'll take it up to its 4-up invuln for Warp Shielding. And make neither of them. I think the bugs definitely want their biggest anti-tank gun to stay alive, so I will also use a CP reroll here and get another 3. So that is going to be 2d6 plus 4 damage going into the Exocrine. Not going to be able to reroll. So that's a 5 plus 4. 9 damage goes through to the Exocrine. Now the Warden is going to fire his Gatling Cannon into the Exocrine and his Iron Hail Heavy Stubber into the Termagant squad. So we're going to start with 12 Gatling shots into the Exocrine on 3s. Taking out 1s and 2s. Strength 6, Toughness 8. So on 5s, we'll reroll one of those for the Honored ability. And we'll take 1 at -2 AP. We'll take it to a 4-up. That won't do it, so that will take another 2 wounds off of the Exocrine, bringing it down to 4. And then quickly the Stubber into the Termagant. The Errant and Warden both took out 1 Termagant apiece, so chipping away on that big squad over here. then actually the only other shooting is going to come from the Warglaves all over here, shooting into the Hormagaunts. Actually, thinking better of it, the Warglaves are going to shoot their shots into the warrior. Since we do have one in cover, they are able to see them. So the one that advanced is just going to be able to shoot his melt-a-gun into them, just barely. So on a 4, gets it with a 4. And then strength 8 on a 3 will definitely do it. -4 AP will go to the 5-up invuln. And with a 3, that's not going to do it. So that's going to be D6 damage on one of the warriors. So 1 damage into one of them. And then now the other Warglaive that did not advance will fire into the warriors. Second Warglaive into the warriors. He is just barely within half distance for his thermal spear. So they're going to be in melter range for it. Hitting on 3s with the 2 shots of the spear. So that's a 2 and a 6. So we will use the honored ability to reroll one of our hits. Get both of them. Strength 9. A 6 and a 1. -4 AP will go right through to the invuln that we have from the Synactive Imperative, and that will get it on a 6. So now it's just the melt-a-gun. Hits once. And a 2 against the warriors isn't going to do it. So that's going to be through for the Warglaive shots. And now we will go into the charge phase. We're going to start with the Warglaive right over here. So with an 8, that will definitely get him into melee. Now we're going to go the Errant into the squad of Termagants. So they will fire Overwatch, but just to see if we make it in. With a 3, that will definitely not do it. So I'm actually going to save the reroll because I feel like the Haruspex is the bigger target for needing to get killed in melee. So we're going to go the Warden into the Haruspex. And again, on a 3, that one we will definitely reroll, so going down to 9 CP. And with a 5, that will definitely not make it into the Haruspex, so we will do the Overwatch from the Termagants, then go into the one fight that made it in. One shot made it to wound the Errant, but we made the save on a 6, so no damage done on the failed charges up here with the big knights. Now we're going to go into the Warglaive, doing his sweep attacks into the Hormagaunts. 8 attacks, hitting on 3s. We'll use the honored ability to reroll one of those, since we're getting full rerolls to wound from being House Cadmus. So 2s, rerolling, getting all of them. So that's going to be 7. Would be -3, so would be straight through. But because of warp shielding, they all have a 5-up. Make 3, fail 4, so that's going to be 4 Hormagaunts gone, and then we will go into their attacks back. It's going to be this many attacks from the Hormagaunts into the Warglaive. So just so I can actually roll them, we will come back once we get to the number of wounds. Hitting on 4s, wounding on 6s, got a total of 4 wounds through at -1 AP, so needing 4-ups. Making all but 1. That's going to be 1 wound taken by the Warglaive, and with that, we're going to go on to the end of turn and see what we score. Looking at our secondaries, we've started on No Retreat, No Surrender, and I don't see many ways that the Tyranids could stop the Knights from doing that, so that'll probably be a good 5 points. Bring it down, has not been started. That is the Turrigon, and no prisoners. We only have 6, but there's plenty of big hordes of bugs to get through. That should not be too much of an issue going forward. So I think we're just going to discard, bring it down, and then go into Tyranid's turn 1. Turn 1 for the Tyranids, and here's what our secondary missions looking like. Blood and Guts, Battlefield Supremacy, and No Retreat, No Surrender. We did have to spend a CP on new orders to get rid of Grind Them Down, since there's only 6 units on the field for the Knights, and they could probably quite easily pick up 6 units of mine in the next turn or 2. So we did not want that one. Blood and Guts might be a little bit difficult, but we should have enough melee in the list to make that at least feasible. Battlefield Supremacy, control more, so they are on 1 objective right now. This action is technically done in the movement phase, but I just went ahead and put some spore mines up on the field on this objective. So really, it's just a question of, can we take this objective from the Knights? And the answer is a hopeful yes. For the rest of the command phase, we spent 1 CP on regenerating some wounds on the Exocrine. He went up to 5, and then we'll also spend a CP on making him act on top bracket. Turrigon chose to spawn a new 10-man Gaunt squad, and the Zoanthrope, or the Neurothrope, put his benefit of 3d6, drop the lowest, on the Zoanthropes. And that should be all of the buffs in the command phase. So now we will go on to the rest of the movement phase for the Tyranids and into the shooting phase. Here we are at the end of the movement phase for the Tyranids. So over here, not much has moved. While in the center, the swarms are coming up onto the 2 Knights in the center of the field. This 10-man squad of Termagants had opportunistic advance used on them, so they moved a mighty 14 inches up to get closer and are not going to be suffering the penalty for advancing and firing their assault weapons, while the Haruspex has moved up and is eyeing up the Warden for his charge. And the Turrigon and Zoanthropes are in the center, ready to continue lending out psychic support and synapse. Looking at it, it doesn't look like there's any stratagems to have a monster act on full wounds, so luckily I did heal him up, so he will at least be in middle bracket for my Exocrine. But that's it for the shooting phase. Now we're going to go on to the psychic phase. We're going to start with the Neurothrope right over here. Right over here, as the camera wants to focus on the antenna and not on the model. We're going to start with Synaptic Lure. So with a 4, needing a 5, that will have to... Yes, we will let that one go through as a fail. Nothing that we want to charge. Looks like it's going to be too difficult to actually get into melee with. So we'll just go on to Smite from the Neurothrope, as Onslaught's not really going to be doing much right now. So just needing a 5, getting it with an 8. So that'll be D3 mortals on the Warglaive in melee with the Hormagaunts. So that'll be 2, and then we'll move on to the next Psychic Bug. Next up in Psychic is the Turrigon. We're going to go with Catalyst from her, needing to see a 6. Failing with a 5, and here is where we're going to spend a CP to reroll. That'll take the Tyranids down to 7 CP remaining, getting it with exactly a 6. Catalyst is going to go on to that guy right up front, as I totally forget his name, but that's going to be a 5-up ignore damage, plus his 4-up invuln that he has from the points upgrade for the entirety of the battle, so that after warp shielding goes away this turn, he is still going to be very difficult for the knights to remove. Then finally, we'll go on to the unit of Zoanthropes, going with their Smite with 3d6, dropping the lowest. So we will, or dropping what I choose to drop. So that will be d6 plus 3 mortal wounds on the closest enemy unit. That'll be a big 6 mortal wounds, and then that'll do it for the psychic phase. Now on to shooting. As we move on to the shooting phase, just a quick note, I did end up using the 5-up Feel No Pain for mortal wounds on the Warden, rolling 6 and ignoring only one of them. So that saved him 1 wound from the Psychic Might of the Zoanthropes, but that is probably not going to be enough, as the amount of shooting looking down on the Knights is pretty significant. But with that said, now we will go into the shooting phase proper. And I'm going to drop the Tyranids down 1 more CP, taking them down to 6 for Observer Organism for the Exocrine. So no cover, not that that was an issue, and Exploding 6s to hit for the Exocrine as he fires into the already wounded knight up here. Now we have the Exocrine shooting into the Knight Warden. So it's going to be D3 plus 6 shots. So 6 plus 1, 7 shots on 4s, and 6s get 1 additional hit. So looking for 6s. So that's going to take 3 out for misses, but 3 out for exploding hits. So that'll be a total of 100% accurate hits. Strength 8, Toughness 8, so wounding on 4s. And that is a pretty good set of wounds, but I think this is going to be our best shot at getting the Knights done or down more in shooting, so we will CP reroll for another 3. That won't be another wound, so 4 at AP minus 4. Luckily, thanks to the Warlord trait of Ion Bulwark, he has 4-up invuln against shooting natively, so no need to reroll or get rotate Ion Shields. That's the word I was looking for. So 4-up invuln, everyone failed, is 3 damage. And it looks like only 1 is passed, so that's going to be 3, 6, 9 damage. That will be a reroll from the Knight. Rerolling it into a 1, so 9 damage going through, taking him down to 10, and taking the Knights down 1 more CP to 7. Now, from the Tyranid Warriors, we're going to take a pot shot with their Venom Cannon into the heavily damaged Knight. See if we can get a little bit more damage on him before we decide where the swarms go. So this will be on a number of shots. So that's 1 shot on a 3. Strength 8, Toughness 8 on one of these Knights. That'll be a 4 to wound, so that'll do it. And minus 3 AP, so 4-up invuln will not do it. So that'll be 2 more damage into the big Knight. So that'll take him down to 8. Now, I think the Tyranids are looking good for the Haruspecs to take him down in melee and get us 1 for Blood and Guts. So the Swarms are going to shift attention to the Errant and see if we can start chipping off wounds through Weight of Fire. This squad of now 28 gaunts got the +1 to hit from the Turrigon, so this will be 28 shots going into the Errant, hitting on 3. So we will come back with the wounds. 9 wounds from this big squad of Termagants into the Errant on AP -1, so 4s. So 1, 2 go through, so a pretty good roll for the armor save. Now it looks like the rest of the swarm will keep chipping away at him, see if Weight of Fire can continue to bring him down. The rest of the Termagants got 1 more wound taken off of the Errant, bringing him down to 21. So now we're going to go into the Turrigon with her Stinger Salvos, and she is going to go into the Errant as well. So this will be Assault 8 hitting on 3s. Half and half hits, and then Strength 5 to the snake, so 5s. Nothing there. And then with that, we just about do it for shooting, except for the Spore Assist. The Spore Assist is going to fire its 5 venom cannons across the field into the Errant, trying to take it down a couple of wounds with the remaining heavy firepower. 5d3 shots, ended up with a total of 9 shots from the Spore Assist, so these are going to be hitting on 5s. Getting 2, and then Strength 8, Toughness 8, 2 at AP -3. So these will be up on the 5-up invulns. Fail both of those, so that's 2 damage each, bringing the Errant down to 17 wounds remaining, and then it'll be onto the charge phase. In the charge phase, we made it in easily with the Haruspex, and we're actually going to try what might end up being a risky maneuver, but if we can, as the Tyranids, take out the 2 big knights from the center of the table quickly, that'll make sure that we are able to get this game in the bag pretty easily. So this 10 Gaunt squad is also going to go charging into the Warden on a 7. That will get them in. And then with the space that is going to be available for the Turrigon, she is going to try to run into the Errant, try to get him tied up in melee and get some wounds taken off of him. So we'll see what she needs, or what she gets rather. And with a 6, we'll move the Termagants and then see if that does it for her. Unfortunately for the Tyranid's plan, these Gaunts were the ones that I used Opportunistic Advance on, so they are not able to charge, even though they were able to fire their assault weapons with no penalty from that strat. So the Turrigon will not be able to tag the Errant in close combat, which, who knows, might be a good thing, might be enough to save her from being chopped in half by the chainsword. So with that, we'll go on to the charging Haruspex, and then the Armiger Warglaive to see if he can get himself out with the Hormagaunts in the fight phase. Now the Haruspex into the Knight, 3 or 5 attacks hitting on 3s. Missing twice. We will let those go through. And then this is Strength 14 versus Toughness 8, so needing 3s. And here is where we will use a reroll for the Haruspex. So getting it 2 at -3 AP, so needing 6s. Making neither of those for the Knights. That's going to be 6 plus 2d3, so at minimum that's going to be 8 damage. That will be the Knight taken out, but for posterity's sake that's a 2, and that's cocked, but looks like a 3, so that will definitely be enough to take the Warden out. So that is one of the bigger knights removed from the table. Before he goes, the Warden is going to make one Valiant Last Stand for 2 CP, bringing the Imperial Knights down to 5. So he is going to sweep into the Haruspex with his chainsword, heading on 5s. And then Strength 8, Toughness 7, so wounding on 3s. So that'll be a full house of those. So that'll be a 4-up invuln. Only one goes through, and then this is 2 damage from the sweep. So 5-up ignore damage from Catalyst. Ends up taking 1 wound off of the Haruspex, so maybe not worth 2 full CP from the Knights, but we had to try and make use of our model as we had it. Now let's go over to the Warglaive and see if he can try to fight his way out of melee. The sweep attacks from the Warglaive into the Hormagaunts right now, so 8 attacks on 3s, so 8. And we will use one of the rerolls here from being Honored, then wounding on 2s, and full rerolls from being Cadmus. So that'll be a full 7 wounds taken. It is, however, still turn 1, so we have a 5-up invuln. That saves 2 of them. 5 more taken out of combat before the Hormagaunts swing back. 3 wounds got through from the Hormagaunts into the Warglaive. So 3 4-up armor saves. Will take 2 more wounds off of the Warglaive over there, bringing him down to 7. But that'll do it for Battle Round 1. Going into Battle Round 2, looks like the Knights have lost one of the 2 big ones that they had, so definitely on the back foot. But they've got solid board presence and solid guns, even with only 1 big one remaining. At the start of Battle Round 2, we are on 12-6 for the Imperial Knights. 5 for scoring no retreat, no surrender, and then 7 for holding our home and 1 in no man's land. Then these are our secondaries that we're working on. No prisoners is up to 11 right now. Storm hostile objectives, I need to take 1 off the Tyranids. And battlefield supremacy, so control more than the Tyranids, which I already want to do for one of my oaths as knights. In the command phase, this Warglaive was in a range to receive the Bondsman ability. I don't think he's particularly going to need it, advance and charge this turn, but gave it out just in case. Then we did have to discard one of our secondaries, so we are on 6 command points for the Knights as we continue to march forward towards the bugs. The Synaptic Imperative is goaded to slaughter, so that's exploding 6s in melee as we go into turn 2. So we'll return at the end of the movement phase. Short movement phase, as they always are with the Knights. So this Warglaive is still stuck in combat. This one has stayed still to make sure that he is still in range of this objective. Our Errant moved up slightly towards the middle, while the Armigers just scooched forward, this one moving his full 12 to start getting this big swarm of Termagants off of the middle. Because we're thinking this is the objective, we're going to try to storm hostile objective on in the middle, take the fight right to the bugs. With that, we're going to go on to the shooting phase for the Knight. The Warglaive in the back is going to fire his thermal spear into the Tyranid warriors, try to start removing some from the objective marker. So hitting on 3s. strength 8, hitting on 3s. 2 of them at -4 AP. So even with them in cover, that should be the warriors removed. Yep, so that will be D6 plus 2. So on the first one, we need to roll a 2 up to remove one of the warriors. Takes one warrior out that was on 4 wounds left, and then the second one is a total of 5, so that will be 2 of the warriors removed. Sorry about that. Don't know how I got it in my head that warriors were 5 wounds each. I think I was looking at their toughness out the corner of my eye when I was marking wounds. So that's just the one on the objective left, so not gonna run to morale, but 1 less venom cannon on the field. Now this Warglaive is going to fire everything that he's got into the Hormagaunts that he's in melee with. So this will be on a 4 with his thermal spears. That'll be 1, so on a 2 up to kill. Alright, kills 1 with thermal spear, and then with the melt-a-gun. And then again a 2 to kill. Alright, kills 2 of them out of melee with him. Then we will go on to the big guns. The Errant, while he would love to get the Haruspex off of the board, is hoping to get some better targets and remove the Exocrine from the board. Even though he's not the most immediate threat, that is still a good anti-vehicle weapon on the table. So we will fire the thermal cannon into him, and then the melt-a-gun is going to go into the Haruspex to try to at least take some wounds off of him. So 2d3 for the thermal cannon. That's going to be a total of 3 shots. On 3s, we'll reroll thanks to being honored. And that's strength 9, toughness 8, so wounding on 3s. That is 3 at AP -4. That's going to be 3d6 plus 6 damage, so that will take the Exocrine well off of the table and definitely get us over the threshold for no prisoners. That's 5 secondary points right there. Really quickly, while we're on the Errant, we'll just do the melt-a-gun into the Haruspex. So on a 3, misses with a 1. And we're not going to worry too much about that, as we did take one of the big bugs off the table. Finally, on to the Helverins. We'll start with the Helverin that is controlling the objective, so the one that is further back. Everything that he has is going to go into this squad of Termagants, because we're really going to need to whittle them down to take control of this objective off of them. So we will start with the Armiger autocannon, or 2 Armiger autocannons. So 4d3 number of shots. So that's 3, 6, 7, 8 shots. On 3s. And we'll reroll a hit for being honored. So missing 3 times. And then choose to kill. Alright, that'll be 5 taken away from the swarm. As I remove them one-handed. And then his heavy stubber on 3s. And on 3s. And that'll be 1 more taken off the board from that squad. Looks like the other Armiger is going to have to do rinse and repeat. So everything from the closer Armiger into the Termagants here. So 4d3 shots from the arm weapons. That's going to be a total of 3 there, 2 there, 2 there, and 1 more. That's what, 4, 7, 10 shots on this one, so looking a little bit better. So 3s, Rerolling one of our misses from our oath. 9 hits and 2s to wound, or 2s to kill. That'll be 9 less termagants on the board. That is not the squad, unfortunately, so the stubber will go in as well. On 3s, and then 3s. So that'll be 1 more dead. So that'll be a total of 10 of them taken off of the board. In the charge phase, we're going to do some risky maneuvers, but as somebody in the Imperium probably said at least once, idiocy is the better part of bravery. So we are going to go in with the Errant into the Haruspex and this 10 Gaunt squad. On a 5, that should do it, I believe, but I will double check and reroll if I need to. I'm just going to leave a 5 on the field there. And then here's probably the riskier of the two. This further Helverin is going to charge into the spore mines on this objective. With the 3, that's definitely not going to do it. But this is unfortunately part of the plan that we need in order to go off. So that will be a reroll. And with a 9, that'll definitely get the Helverin in. Unfortunately, it was a 6 needed to get into melee with the Haruspex, so the Errant is going to be out in the breeze. However, with the Armiger in melee with the Spore Mines, that will get us control of this objective, as they are going to blow. So we've spent a total of 2 CP, 1 for the reroll to the charge for the Helverin, and 1 for ignoring the mortals that are about to come from these Spore Mines. So with their floating death ability, each of these 6, there's only 5 models there, but it does say to spawn a unit of 6 Spore Mines or 1 Euclid Spore, will blow up. So 2 to 4 is 1 mortal wound, and 5 up is D3. So that's going to be 2 plus 2d3 mortal wounds. That'll be 6 mortal wounds going through, and a 5 up feel no pain for the Helverin. Ignores none of them. So he does take 6 mortal wounds for his troubles, but he does secure the objective. Now in the fight phase, the only fight is the ongoing combat between this Warglaive and the Hormagaunts. So Hormagaunts get to go as it is the non-active player for defending combats. So this will be 9 times 3, 27 attacks. Hitting on 4s, 6s will explode for 1 additional hit. So a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 explosions. So that'll turn 4 of these misses into hits. And the rest of them get on out of here. As I do this, there's something that I've always wondered. I don't know how does the Imperium know what the names of all of these Tyranid species are? Because I'm not aware of any example of them ever speaking in the lore. Is there some sort of psychic connection through the warp that psychers like astropaths and navigators can tell what each of these is called, or did the Imperium just give them their names? Something I've always wondered, as also do high-ranking Imperial officials also call orc units what their orky names are. Like, I can't really picture Gilliman talking about snaz wagons and boom blast jets. Regardless, so we're going to be wounding on 6s for all of the hits from the Hormagaunts. And we only wound with 1 out of all of that. So 1 at -1 AP. That will get a wound at least, and that will, unfortunately, for the Knights actually bracket him. So that even though that's only 1 wound done, that will be enough to bring him to the middle bracket. So now we will pause and go on to the Warglaive attacks back. 8 attacks from the Warglaive into the Hormagaunts, now on 4s. So that did make us miss 1 more. And then this will be strength 6, so 2s to kill. So that will be 2 more. And let me just double check for the lay low the tyrants. So, Martial Pride, each time I shoot or fight, you can reroll 1 hit or 1 wound. Alright, so I will reroll the 1. And that'll take it, so 3 more Hormagaunts are taken off the board. Here is the battlefield at Knight's turn, or end of turn 2. So we were able to take not only 1 of the objectives in No Lands, but we actually hold all of the No Man Land objectives. So it's going to be a score game that the Tyranids are going to have to try to catch up on. However, I do think even with the Exocrine gone, the lone large knight, the Knight Errant, will be not long for this world, as well as this Helverin over on this flank. So it might be, can the Tyranids outkill the knights before the knights are able to continue to rack up the points? Usually it's the other way around. Usually the knights don't have enough table control. But as it is 28 points to the knights and only 6 for the Tyranids, we're going to go into Tyranids turn 2 and see what they can do. Top of turn 2 for the Tyranids, and here are our secondaries. We still have Blood and Guts. We have no prisoners and secure no man's land, so now we need to kill 30 wounds of knights and take 2 or more objectives in no man's land. So it looks like we are going to need to make sure that we get this one back from the Helverin and finally take out the Errant over here. In the command phase, we are going to pass out our buffs. So the Neurothrope, again, is going to pass out 3d6 to the Zonethropes over here. Hop in between Synapse to Synapse to Synapse to Synapse. The Turvigon is going to give +1 to hit to this squad of Termagants, which was surviving on 2. So she will spawn 10 of those back in. And then at the movement phase, the Spore Assist will also continue to spawn some Spore Mines. But we'll do that at the end of the movement phase and come back to you then. Everybody in the Tyranids army has moved on up. So just closing the gap over here with the Neurothrope. Warrior has stood still, just sticking on the home objective. This squad of 2 got 4 more spawned into it. I thought you automatically spawned 10, so I just moved the +1 to hit onto the 10-man squad over here. Monsters and Zonethrope are eyeing up the last big knight. 1 CP, taking the Tyranids down to 3, was spent on Opportunistic Advance again. On these Termagants, they're not actually on top of the building, they're just inside, but it was fiddly to try to make sure that we can get this Armiger off of the objective to secure no man's land again. Then a squad of 6, I only have 5 of the Spore Mines were spawned here to continue blocking in the Armigers and make sure that they don't have anywhere to go. And with that, on to the Psychic phase. We're going to start over here with the Neurothrope with Onslaught, which is going to be able to bounce through the Synapse chain all the way over to these Termagants if I get it. So this will be needing a 6. Getting it with a 6, so they have the benefit of shooting and charging after advancing with no penalty. Then we'll just do a smite from the Neurothrope into the Armiger here with a 3 going up to a 4. will not do it. And we will spend a CP to reroll that one. So bringing the Tyranids down to 2. With a 5, 6, gets it. So D3 mortals. So 3 more mortals on the Warglaive, taking him down to 3. Now into Psychic over here. Turbigon's going to attempt to manifest Catalyst, needing a 6. Getting it with a 9, we will go for the Haruspex again, getting Catalyst. And then finally the Zoanthropes will attempt a Smite on 3d6. So that's a 8, getting it with 3d3, or d3 plus 3 damage. So a big 6 damage onto the Errant. And again, he will have to, or he will use the CP to try to ignore the mortals. That'll be 2, or either 1 or 2, so I'll either bring us down to 3 or 2. I'll check in a second after I roll. Absolutely no 5-up, so that is a wasted CP for the Knights, bringing him down to 11 wounds remaining. Now into the shooting phase, we'll do all of the small shots from the Termagants and the 2 monsters over here into the Errant, and we'll come back after all of these have been resolved. At the end of all that small arms fire, the Errant is left with 7 wounds remaining. That's the majority of the shots taken from the Tyranid swarm. Now we're going to go on to this squad of Termagants, firing everything into the half-strength Helverin. So 20 shots on 4s. 9 hits on 6s. Getting 3 of them. And taking 2 more wounds off of the Helverin, taking it down to 4. Now we are going to go on to the Sporicist, and we will try to, let me take a think about where the 5 Venom Cannons want to go. Might be a little bit risky, but the Sporicist is going to split fire his Venom Cannons. 2 of them are going to go into this Helverin, and 3 of them are going to go into the Errant. Trying to make sure that I kill, but I also need to make sure that I kill in melee and simultaneously get these points off of the Knights. So the blue die will be the number of shots into the Armiger, and then the black dice into the big Knight. So it's going to be 5 shots into the Armiger, then 4 shots into the big Knight. Ended up only doing 1 wound to the Errant, so here is his save on a 3. That's not gonna do it, so he will take 1 more chip shot before he is engaged in melee. Now into the charge phase, we're going to start with the Termagants into the Helverin, mainly just so that I know that I can control the objective. So 7 inches will definitely get him there. Haruspex into the Errant on a 7, Termagant into the Errant on a 7, and I don't think the Termagants are going to need to go in. So I'll move the Termagants into melee and then get fighting. In the charge phase, the Haruspex is going to use 1 CP for trampling charge, and since he does have the Horned Chitin keyword, on a 2 to 4, it's going to be 3 mortal wounds, and on a 5-up, it's D3 plus 3 mortal wounds to the Errant. And that is about as cocked as you can. On a 4, that'll be 3 mortal wounds. So taking him down to only 2 remaining. And now we'll go into the actual fight with the Haruspex. So 5 attacks with his Shoveling Claws on 3s. And then Strength 14, Toughness 8, so on 3s. And we are only on 1 CP left for the Tyranids, so yes, we will definitely use the last CP that we have for another wound. So these both need to be 6s, or else the errant is gone. Close, but no cigar for the errant. And at the end of its life, 2 CP will be spent on the errant for a noble sacrifice to automatically explode. Roll the distance, and it's going to be 7 inches, so everything in this central part of the board is going to take D6 mortal wounds. So we'll start with this 6-bug squad of Gaunts, and 1 of them bites it. 10-bug squad, 2 of them. Then on the Turbigon, she'll take 5. Haruspex will take 2. And then the Zoanthropes will take 4 mortal wounds. Our second charger will be the Termagants into the Helverin. So 10 attacks from them on 4s. And then those 2 6s from Goaded to Slaughter will trigger and explode. So 6s to wound the Helverin. Getting 2 6s on his 3-up armor. 1 more wound will go through, and then it will be the Armiger's time to strike back in both combats. The Helverin over here was able to take out 3 of the Termagants, and now we go on to the Warglaive on lowest bracket. So 8 attacks on 5s, getting only 2, so we'll re-roll one of these into a miss again. Then 2s to kill. Alright, 2 less Hormigants on the field, so that'll only be 12 attacks into him in the final swing back. So we'll just do them real quick while I have the camera up and open. On 4s, 6s explode, and I'm not seeing any 6s anywhere in here. We'll just take all those out. And then 6s to wound. No 6s to wound either. So looks like the Warglaive over there has taken a bit of a lucky break in this turn, but that is offset by the fact that neither of the big knights are on the field anymore. So that'll take us through the rest of turn 2 for the Tyranids, and let's see what they score. They're up to 2 on blood and guts. 24 for no prisoners for killing the errant that turn, and they will score secure no man's land. So that'll take them up to 19 versus the 28 that the Imperial Knights are currently on as we go into battle round 3. Top of round 3 for the Imperial Knights, and here are our secondaries after spending 1 of the 2 CP that we gained from our honor for the turn. So we need Blood and Guts, Extend Battle Lines, and Secure No Man's Land. So it is a battle for the No Man Land objective markers. This one's definitely solidly within our hands. That one's not getting claimed by us anytime soon. And then if we're able to get real lucky with the Stomps and Stubber from the Armiger over here, we might be able to get this one, but not holding my breath. I did remember the Warlord trait for 1 step ahead, so I rolled for a couple of those and for the CP for this round, and that brought up the Tyranids by 2 CP. So it's currently 2 CP each, and 35 for the Imperial Knights and 19 for the Tyranids as we go into turn 3 movement for the Knights. Not a lot of movement, but a lot of thinking off camera. The only armiger on the table that has moved was this Helverin that fell back, and I've used 2 CP for a Squire's Duty to fall back, shoot, and charge here, because I definitely need this objective back and cleared off of the Hormagaunts. While over here, he is just trying to stay holding this objective. He'll move a little bit like so, but basically staying still. And then the Warglaive is still trying to carve his way out of the Hormagaunts he's been fighting this whole battle. With that, we will go on to the shooting phase for the Imperial Knights. We're going to start with the armiger that fell back into the Termagants that he was in combat with. So 4d3 for number of shots. So 3 there, 1, 1. Hitting on 5s. Alright, does not look like a great hit, so we'll use a reroll here. Try to get one more hit. There we go. And then 2s to kill. Alright, 2 of the Griblies taken down. Then the Heavy Stubber on top. Ooh, better hits there. And then on 3s to kill. I'll take 2 more off of the objective marker. And then, unfortunately, I think the second, well, let me think. Now, since this armiger counts as 5 models for this objective, that does get me the objective back under Imperial control. So the armiger back here is going to split fire. His armiger autocannons are going to go into this squad of Termagants right here, while the Heavy Stubber is just going to try to clear out those spore mines that are on the table. So, number of shots for the armiger autocannons will be a grand total of 6 into hitting all the times and then killing on 2s. Rerolling one of those, so that'll be a grand total of 6 of them removed off of the table. And then quickly 4 shots from the Stubber, and then 2s to kill them. That will take off to 3, technically, of the spore mines. Take them a little bit off for the armigers to get a little bit more breathing room. Warglaive that is locked in combat is going to continue to try to fire into the Hormagaunts. So with the big gun, that'll be a 1 hit, and then 2 to kill it. So that kills 1, and then the Melt-A-Gun on a 5, rerolling. No, so he does kill 1 that he is in melee with, but will not, unfortunately, get himself out of combat. And then finally, this Warglaive will take his Thermal Spear into the Turbigon, and if it's in range, I'll double check. The Melt-A-Gun will go into that front squad of Gaunts. Thermal Spear into the Turbigon on 3s. And 3s to wound. So that's going to be 2 at -4 AP. No save for the Turbigon, and this will be D6 each. So on double 6s, this could be the Turbigon gone. That is close enough that I will check if it is in 15 inches for D6 plus 2. It definitely is not within 15, but that is still the Turbigon down on only 1 wound remaining. So now we will go into the charge phase, make it quick. this Armiger is going to charge back into the 3 gaunts over here with a 10. We'll go like so. And then we will go into the fight with this Helverin really quickly, hitting on 5s, getting them all, and then killing on 2s. We'll reroll one of those. Nope. So they are still going to stick around, and they get their 6-up saves. So only one of them gets squished. And now it is the 3 remaining Hormagaunts' turn to go into the Warglaive. 3 Hormagaunts into the Warglaive on 4s. And now on 6s. Only one at -1 AP. Makes it. And now the Warglaive's chance to attack back. It attacks on 5s. We'll try again for a reroll for a hit. Not that time. Then 3 on 2s to kill, so as long as there's no 1s, this is the squad finally gone. And there's not only 1, but there are 2 1s and no CP, so that is only 1 Hormagaunt taken off the board. So that, it looks like it is going to continue to be the game for that Helverin as we go through turn 3 for the Knights. At the end of the turn, that will be 45 points for the Knights, and we'll ditch Blood and Guts for free. So still a good score, or good looking from the point of scoring for the Knights. So the Tyranids will just have to try to continue to make sure that they can get the Knights off the table. So we will go into turn 3 for the Nids. Turn 3 for the Tyranids of Hive Fleet Kraken, and our secondaries are still Blood and Guts, no prisoners, and we now have a tempting target of the objective over here that the Warglaive has been holding all game. So Blood and Guts we will get if we kill anything in close combat, no prisoners we'll get if we kill anything, and now we need that objective in the far field for the Nids. For primary, we did score 7 more points, bringing us up to a grand total of 26. And we are currently on 3 CP. The Turrigon, even though she's on her last legs, is not when it comes to spawning. She spawned 11 Gaunts into this front squad, who were the one who got her +1 to hit buff. The Neurothrope also gave himself the 3d6 psychic buff to make sure that he can start smiting away with the rest of the table, dealing with the Knights. So with that, let's go on to the movement phase in turn 3 for the Nids. Through the movement phase, the Lone Warrior has moved up to attempt to help kill the lone Warglaive up there in melee to take a spot on the home objective. The Kraken-specific advanced stratagem was used on these 2 Termagants to get them to hold the backfield objective, while the big squad of now 13 Gaunts advanced, getting the big 6 up right towards the objective that they need to take. Then the Haruspex has moved forward. Turbigon's just staying on the center objective. Zoanthropes have moved up towards the no man's land. The Spore Mines have moved within their 3 inches and are about to explode, while nothing has moved over here. So, real quick, we'll just do the explosions on the Spore Mines. That is 3 mortal wounds from the Spore Mines. Onto that Armiger holding the lone objective, and they are removed. So now we will go on to the psychic phase. We're going to start with Catalyst from the Turrigon, needing a 6, not getting it with a 4, and there are other more important abilities that we have in the Psychic phase, so we're going to have to let that one slide. We'll go to the Neurothrope now with his 3d6. We'll start with Onslaught onto the Gaunt squad, so that'll be a total of a 10. So they get to advance and charge for free. Then we will do a Smite for a 9, 10, so a regular Smite. So actually hoping for a 1 or a 2 damage Smite here. 2 damage Smite works out perfectly, so that we can take this one down in close combat, finally. Then moving on through the rest of Psychic, we will go on to a Smite from the Zonethropes, getting it with a 6, so that'll be D3 on one of the Helverins. Looks like it'll be this Helverin takes 1 more mortal wound in the Psychic phase. And now on to shooting. Starting our shooting phase with the Gaunt going into the full wound Warglaive, hitting on 3s. And then on 5s. So that'll be 5 at -1 AP, so 4 up saves for the Armiger. Takes only 1 of them, so that'll be a good start defensively for the full wounds Armiger as we go into the Turrigon's shooting as she struggles to maintain her link to the hive mind. Stinger salvos from the Turrigon into that now 1 wound taken off Warglaive on 5s. And only 2, so 5s again to wound. 1 at -1, so a 4 up. Makes it. And then with that, the Venom cannons from this are not in range. I should have thought to fall back with the Termagants back here, but I declared that I wasn't, so we will live with that mistake. So we will double check if the tongue from the Haruspex is in range. If it is, we'll roll that off camera. If not, we will move on to the charge phase. And at the end of the charge phase, here's how we're looking for the Tyranids. The lone warrior got into melee. Gaunts made it around and are currently controlling the objective marker here, while the Haruspex has moved up, but he will not be able to make it into melee for probably another turn or 2. Might be end of the game when we can see him in combat again. But other than that, that is all of the charges for the Tyranids. Knights have no CP to interrupt, so we will fight at our discretion. And we'll actually start with the warrior, see if we can't get the 1 wound off this Warglaive to get us 2 of our 3 secondaries off the board. 3 attacks from the lone warrior into the Warglaive, hitting on 3s, strength 7, toughness 7, so needing 4s to wound. Getting a full spread of hits, and -2 AP, 5 ups. And it was a good job for the Helverin, or not the Helverin, the Warglaive to hold on as long as he did, but that's going to do it for him. And luckily, or unfortunately, at this point, he does not explode. That will be our 3rd tally for Blood and Guts, and that will be plenty of wounds for no prisoners. So that'll be 10 more points in the pockets of the Tyranids, and 1 more model removed for the Knights. Going through the rest of the chargers, surprisingly enough, the Termagants were able to take another wound off of the Warglaive over there, so he's on 10. Now we go to non-chargers with the Knights acting first, and we'll go with the Helverin trying to stomp out the last of these Termagants who are bothering it. We'll try to reroll one of those, and that's not gonna do it. And that's the only ongoing combat, so 2 attacks. And then on a 6 to wound, isn't gonna do it. So that is how things are looking at the end of turn 3 for the Tyranids. We will also score our tempting target, bringing us up to a total of 48 points for the Tyranids, to the Imperial Knights 45, as we continue to whittle them down model by model. But it is a close scoring game so far, so let's go into round 4 for the Imperial Knights. Turn 4 for the Knights rather, and here are our secondaries: Assassination, Defend Stronghold, and Behind Enemy Lines, after pitching Capture Enemy Outpost for a command point. We are on 52 victory points right now, so looks like we will be hoping to finally kill the Turvagon in the middle for Assassinate, and then Defend Stronghold should hopefully be doable, but other than that, definitely looking like we are reaching the last fumes of gas left in the Knights' tanks. So we will see what we can do in their turn 4. Midway through the shooting phase now. Nothing much to say about the command phase or movement phase. None of them moved. The Warglaive was able to kill 3 of the Termagants that are in melee with him with his shooting. And I'm about to go on to this Warglaive, firing everything into these 2 Termagants. Trying to get himself out of melee, finally. So these are on 6s. I'll try and reroll a hit here. Nope. Then the Heavy Stubber on a 5. Getting 2 hits, needing 3s to kill. Killing exactly 1. That's not going to be enough to get him out. Then over here, this Helverin is going to fire everything it's got into the Turbagon. So 43 shots. Definitely a lot better on shots here. Then on 3s, we'll take those 2 misses, par for the course. Then 5s, we'll reroll a wound here. 4 into the Turbagon. And with 665, that will definitely succeed against the main guns of the Helverin. Now the Stubber, that 3 would have been hit, so on 5s and 4s. So that might be the end of that for the Helverins and for the Knights, as that was possibly one of our last secondaries that we could have easily achieved. So I'm going to go through the fight phase off camera and see where we're at in terms of points as the Helverins with their shooting. Turn 4 for the Tyranids, and I think this is where we are going to call it a victory for the Tyranids. So the Knights, unfortunately, whiffed on assassinating the Turvagon, so that is 5 points that they just are not going to be able to score. Defend Stronghold, they would have gotten, that would have gotten them up to 57 at the end of this turn. Spore Assist still at full wound, so 5 Venom Cannons into a 1 wound Armiger. Sure, that would take him out, even if I did give him the benefit of cover. And these were the secondaries that the Tyranids pull. So Defend Stronghold, basically a gimme. Area Denial, they've already got. Raise Banner, probably not something they could have done too soon, but that's still 10, 17 points that they would have gotten, bringing them to 77 to 57, a 20-point lead for the Tyranids. And with that, and probably 1 Helverin definitely dead, this Warglaive almost certainly dead, or probably did, between Psychic Might and charges from the Haruspecs and the rest of the Tyranids. That would leave only one Helverin at the very back, who could at most probably take some pot shots at the Zoanthropes, maybe not even kill them, but only be on one objective at the very end. So not looking great. Plus the Tyranids had end of the turn, or end of the round turn rather, so they could spread out and claim 4 of the 5 objective markers quite easily. So that is how the game is going to end up. A close one. Definitely think there were a few misses from the Imperial Knights on this one, where they needed to be a little bit more lethal, but also the Tyranids were well equipped. I definitely made the list with plenty of tank killing in mind. So that was that, with the Psychic Might of the Zoanthropes, and then the shooting from the Spore Assist, all the mass shots from the Termagants and the Exocrine. Definitely did a good job taking out the Knights of House Cadmus, and then somehow, who knows how, but somehow, from turn 1 being in melee with a Knight, 2 out of these 20 still survive and are on the table to end everything. So, with that, a victory for the Might of the Hive Mind in this battle of metal and flesh. So, if you folks enjoyed the content, please make sure to leave a like, hit subscribe, and there are ways to support the channel in the video description down below. Please make sure that you stay tuned to Logai Wargaming in the future, and I'll see all of you folks on the next battlefield of the 41st millennia.